flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome to the State of the City. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce Mayor Joe DeStefano.
Thank you, Council President Rodriguez, and welcome all. It's a pleasure to once again be able to present the State of the City. I want to welcome Alejandra Ortega from ABCD, Dr. Young from SUNY Orange, Marilyn Pierce, Michelle Duggan, and Pastor Rustico from the Warming Center, Dave Madden from the Run for Downtown Committee, and representing Faytian College, Anna, Karen, and Dr. Zhao. And I believe Yaya and Anthony Williams are scheduled to attend also, and also to welcome all the members of the Common Council, department heads, family, friends, and residents who are watching at home. It's an honor and privilege to once again serve as mayor of our city. I have done my best to lead with vision, compassion, ideas, and decisiveness. My administration has been accessible and transparent, and we will continue to be responsive to the needs of our city and our residents. And before I go any further, I better also welcome my wife and my sister, because someone's giving me evil eyes, and it's not you, it's Jacob.
That's true.
So, the Common Council, led by my partner in government since 2010, Miguel and I, when we ran together, we've worked closely with our county legislators, Joel Sierra, Mike Paduch, and both legislators represent the majority of the city, along with Janet Sutherland, who represents a very small part of the city. This past year, we said goodbye to a longtime council member, Alderman Tom Burr, and welcomed back former 2nd Ward Alderman, now representing the 1st Ward in the city of Middletown, to my left here, Kevin Witt. You know, these State of the City addresses are an opportunity to present to you where we have been, where we are, and where we're going as a city. For those that have been here for many years, we can all agree, I believe, that we as a city went through some tough years. I also believe that most would agree that we believe that those tough years are behind us. It's easy for us in politics to present to you a point in time, pound our chest and say, look what we did. To get a clear picture, we must look at issues such as crime and taxes as trends over periods of time. This provides a much more accurate picture to how effective we are in government. Therefore, I will address city finances first, since this is the driver of all of our services. We made sound fiscal management a priority in Middletown. All of our city budgets have balanced the investments needed to keep Middletown moving forward while respecting the budgets of city taxpayers. We have been very responsible in this area. We have 3 main funds for the city: water, sewer, and general. And for the past 10 years, our spending has increased at a combined rate of 2.58% annually. Our Moody's bond rating continues to be strong, and we have stayed at or below the New York State property tax for 10 consecutive years, tax cap. During that 10-year period, Don Paris has been our city treasurer. Don has been the go-to guy implementing the fiscal management plan that we as city officials implemented or put in place. In 2021, Don retired as treasurer, and along with Don, our deputy treasurer, Janet Gallo, also retired after 34 years of work with the city. Both were valuable employees, and we will miss their advice and guidance. Now we have new leadership team in the finance department. Our new treasurer is Kellyanne Kelly, and her deputy is Leonora Liz. We had the opportunity to go through our first budget round together, and both are very professional and have the necessary leadership qualities that we were seeking. Welcome aboard, Kellyanne and Leonora. Our next department is the assessment. Marianne Feely is the head of the Office of Assessment. Marianne and her staff have processed 622 enhanced STAR applications, along with 2,208 STAR applications. They are also the point people for veteran, age, and business exemptions. They are there to help And since 2018, Marion, and probably the most important role, has worked to add over $3 million in assessed value to the tax roll. Our next department, and I apologize in advance for the slide, is Civil Service. Our Director, Joseph Massey, and the Civil Service Commission. They meet every third Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m. This department functions at a high pace due to the hard work of Civil Service Clerk Pam Welch, along with Mr. Massey. Excuse me, I got stuck there. They currently oversee 519 school district employees, 304 city employees, and 7 employees of the Housing Authority. Mr. Massey has been diligent in one area, and that is to once again offer the police exam for the city of Middletown on April 9th. The Civil Service must receive your application by March 7th at noon. Chief Awancho has arranged for a one-day online tutorial to help prepare for the exam, and we are doing our best regarding minority recruitment. We need to make our department more diverse, and we need your help in doing so. The City of Middletown Police Department has 71 budgeted positions. We have a population that is probably in the area of 60% to 70% minority. We have 1 African-American police officer. Our diversity outreach is underway and continues, but we need you to take the test. If you want your police department to reflect your community, we need to have people take the test. It's a great career with a well-respected department, and the pay is not so bad either. You start at $70,000, and after 1 year, the salary is over $83,000. Our next department is the city clerk, and again, this plays an important role in our operations. They are the keeper of all records, and they are responsible for maintaining a transparent operation within city government. One of their goals is to make accessing city records more user-friendly. In 2021, this office handled over 1,000 requests for city records. Along with that, they play an important role in our social media presence, from website operation to assisting with Channel 20, and also working with Eileen Hansen of the Paramount Theater regarding Channel 20. Since 2010, John Numchuck has served in the role of city clerk. John has retired, and he leaves behind an efficient operation that will be tough to follow. With John, we also had Karen Sisko, a new grandma times 2, who decided to retire from that office, and I wish both the best in retirement. We were successful, though, in recruiting Rick McCormick, a Middletown resident working for the Spring Valley School District, or Mount Vernon, one of those districts down there. It is nice to have Rick as part of the team. During the past 2 years, we called upon our senior program staff to go above and beyond, with seniors being the most vulnerable population regarding COVID-19. We scaled back in-house programs. However, we could not hold our seniors back from meeting. The Golden Age Club started holding meetings at Davidge Park, allowing some safe socialization outdoors. We conducted Christmas light tours for them and drives through the city, along with our grand reopening event held in June. Our focus shifted to offering special assistance as we provided over 5,000 rides to City of Middletown residents over the age of 60 for shopping, doctor's appointments, and other needs during COVID. We are currently using the upper floor of the center to provide free COVID testing. The program has made over 3,000 wellness calls to club registrants, and has also offered rides to the polls for those who needed assistance. Working with our Parks and Rec staff, over 150 members had meals delivered to their homes on a regular basis. The Senior Center staff are conducting wellness calls and engaging with our seniors at their homes during these times, and that's very important business for us. In March, I will be requesting that the council appropriate $100,000 of our ARPA funds for a new HVA system at the Senior Center so we can get this program fully operational. We must do what we can and install this state-of-the-art system that protects this very vulnerable population from airborne disease such as COVID. We are hopeful that by doing this action, that 22 and beyond will allow us to open the Senior Center doors more frequently and permit the numerous senior programs we offer to operate. I want to say thank you to Jalissa and your team for your commitment to our seniors in our city, and especially for all the extra work you folks did during 2021 and 2020. Our next department is our Recreation Department. As 2021 was winding down, we had another one of our key staff retire, Superintendent of Recreation Chris Brinkerhoff. Chris worked for the city for 32 years. I was fortunate enough to appoint her to the superintendent position in 2015, and Chris has spent a lifetime dedicated to our kids and expanding recreational opportunities for the City of Middletown residents. Next in line for that job was Raelyn Berthoff. Ray has worked for the park since she was a kid, starting in 1999. She has previously served as the assistant superintendent under Chris. Ray then said it best in her report when she referred to the department she now runs as, quote, "The strength of our city is in its diversity. Having all ages, all religions, and cultures working, living, and playing together is what makes Middletown a wonderful place to live and raise a family." As Raelyn moved into the superintendent position, Nicole Sirakis moved into the assistant superintendent, and we recently hired Contessa Beckford as program coordinator. All bring experience, dedication, and commitment to their jobs. We strive to identify the projects, programs, and services that residents consider important, programs that our youth and community are interested in and need. Our mission is to provide a sustainable system of safe, attractive parks. We continue to collaborate with the school district, great partners of ours, to provide the best recreational facilities and offer an array of special programs that focus on our community's character, such as our adaptive fitness program for physically disabled youth. Our dedicated staff, full-time, part-time, and camp employees, all step up and make a difference in the lives of the people around them. If you're not familiar with our recreation programs, you really need to visit the center or the recreation website. Activities range from adult and youth night paint nights, boxing, stroller walks in the park, fishing derbies, sports clinics for soccer, lacrosse, cheerleading, outdoor family, movies, cops and kids and cops nights, cookies and cops nights, reservoir trail hiking, and so much more. No one can say that there is nothing for your kid to do in this city. Expanding those programs, we funded the creation of Woolslayer Field out by Pilgrim's Estates and contiguous to Davidge Park. Moving forward this spring, we will be officially opening Richard Woolslayer Field off Monhagan Avenue. Because of COVID, the construction took a bit longer, about a year than expected. This facility will be utilized by youth football and other activities coordinated by the rec department. It will have a rubber-based walking track around the field, along with bleachers, concession stands, parking lots, restroom facilities, and more. We are hoping and working on funding for options for lighting those fields. Woolslayer Field will be connected to the main Davidge Park by a walkway, and the Heritage Trail will dissect the two. Davidge has grown now from a 142-acre park to a 192-acre park. People come from all over to enjoy the variety of birds in the wetland areas, the hiking and fishing, and the beauty that this new Davidge Park offers. The park now extends out to Ingracia Road. That's pushing it towards our reservoir and our reservoir trails. This project has been a huge success for us. So many can now enjoy the breathtaking ridge views overlooking the lakes. Whether they come for the more experienced hiking trails or the passive trails for a family stroll, this tremendous community asset, never before open to city residents or to anyone other than people who lived in the area and would trespass, is now enjoyed by so many. We have begun planning to connect the reservoir trails with the Heritage Trail at Davidge, and that will be an exciting moment for us. Other recreational opportunities include our pool system. Our pool program had issues in 2021, and we were only able to open one of our 3 pools, that being War Memorial at Davidge. One issue that is still a concern of ours involves having enough certified lifeguards. This is something every community that we've done outreach with has experienced this past year. Raelyn has developed a free certification course, which usually runs around $250 to any person who works for our parks program in 2022 once certified. Having a larger pool of guards will enable us to open all our pools with longer hours. If we are going to have a successful summer pool season, we need our young people, or even those who have an interest that are not young people, not so young people, to take this course and work for the city. Which brings us to the Maple Hill Pool, that being one of the three. By not opening the pool last year, we were able to further investigate some of the leakage problems that we've had over the years. The pool is over 50 years old, and unfortunately, it will not be available for 2022 for this season. And we have some tough decisions to make. We cannot repair the pool based on the experts that have come in and reviewed it. We will have discussions with the Maple Hill neighborhood. Both alderpersons in that neighborhood, Ram Kassoon, Kate, and Paul Johnson, the Recreation Commission, and the community as a whole regarding the best path forward for the Maple Hill Pool. One option for consideration would be to close the Maple Hill Pool and convert the area to a multi-purpose sports court, including handball. Based upon our unofficial surveys, it appears that the community is supportive of a wading pool concept similar to what you see at water parks. The question is where. We have begun exploring the development of an aquatic facility at Davidge. Currently, Davidge has a large deep-end pool, recently renovated thanks to the Raleigh family at a cost of well over $1 million. Renovating and repairing and replacing the Maple Hill Pool will run well over $1 million. This includes a separate children's section at Davidge that was put in by the Raleigh family. We will collaborate with local experts, groups, and outside vendors to provide services that suit community needs and best utilize our facilities. That may be to replace Maple with an aquatic pool at Maple or create an aquatic facility at Davidge. That will be determined as we move forward with the alderman representing that ward, the Rec Commission, and the neighbors. The Heritage Trail to Middletown is another exciting opportunity that we've been waiting well over 20 years for. And finally, the trail from Goshen to Middletown along East Main Street is complete. We are now there, or near completion. You can use it. I think they're working on the bridges now. We no longer have to say the trail is coming to Middletown. We can now say that the trail is here. I must give thanks to County Executive Steve Newhouse, our County Parks Director Jim Brooks, and the Planning Director Alan Sorensen. They continue to work closely with Jacob as we decide the best path through downtown. While there have been some problems with the delays in the final design from East Main to Ingrassia Road, the planning has been ongoing. We recently received this flow chart, which is a project review flow chart about the restart of the trail project with segment 3 kickoff, the meeting to be held early in March to begin the final right-of-way acquisitions needed to complete the segment. The delay in this part is unfortunate and a little disappointing, but as you can see on the flow chart, they do have now a schedule to move forward. One area that we've always believed that we were lacking in, and I know as a kid it wasn't such a problem because we had colder weather, was ice skating and winter sports. So we don't really have mountains for people to go skiing, so we're trying to examine opportunities to expand our winter sports programs in the city, especially for young kids. I'm proposing that we expand our winter outdoor programs in a way that this March I will be presenting to the Common Council a plan to install a seasonal refrigerated ice rink under the pavilion, be 30 by 80 in size, located right behind us at Erie Park. It will be operational by next season. The total cost is about $150,000. It is fully portable, so it can be removed at season's end, and will be fully funded with federal monies, and will be a great addition to our rec programs. We have had people come into our meetings asking for this type of facility. Maria Bruni has been working on it in the downtown area, and we had a little modification of our plan, but I think the consensus is that's where we will move forward with the ice rink. My next major focus in the parks area will be improving access to the recreation center complex and connecting Maple Hill Park with the recreation campus. We have done some preliminary planning that includes sidewalks and some safety measures at crossings, but the major goal would be a pedestrian crossing across County Route 78, connecting the 15-acre Route 78 campus with the 19-acre Maple Hill Park. If you're not familiar with the two, they're divided by County Route 78 and has limited access, limited foot traffic access, which we are aware of. So we will be addressing sidewalks, and the dream will be to have a pedestrian crossing over over County Route 78, making it much safer. I don't know when we're going to get there or if it's going to be soon, but we are focusing on it as the campus usage increases. In the meantime, Alderman Tobin is working on transportation opportunities to get kids back and forth from the rec center. And believe me, the rec center is being heavily used at this time, so it doesn't appear to be such a problem, but with this heavy usage, we see more opportunities to increase that for more foot traffic. The fire department, Chief Nick Barber, has completed his first year as chief. He's been joined by an extraordinary group of assistant chiefs, hardworking, and administrative team members. They're all present here tonight. I want to thank them for coming, and the department has functioned at a high level. The department responded to 886 calls in 2021, which is an average of 2.4 calls for service per day. The overwhelming majority of the calls were false alarms, thankfully, with the balance being safety-related, such as gas leaks, elevator rescue, or responding to auto accidents. Due to the rapid response time of the department, we were able to limit second alarm fires to just 8 in 2021, and that's good work. We remain committed to equipping our members, both the paid and volunteer force, with the best gear and best equipment. The council has authorized the purchase of the $65,000 Cascade system, the breathing system, using federal ARPA funds. All of the 7 pieces of our apparatus remain in good condition. All are 15 years old or less, with 3 being in service only 3 years. The department is dedicated to providing fire prevention education to our residents, businesses, and schools. They are committed to improving outreach and community education efforts with the hope of reducing fire safety hazards. One area of caution that we have started to investigate is ambulance service, though. Nick was very helpful in this, or Chief Barber was very helpful in this area. I continue to have concerns about ambulance response times in the city. While we recently renewed our contract with Mobile Life, during the negotiations, we realized many areas in need of improvement, starting on the state level, are required to sustain the system. Many communities in New York State are not receiving adequate funding or providing adequate ambulance protection for a variety of reasons. This came out during our negotiations with a variety of ambulance providers. Most of them, as I mentioned, center on funding, inadequate pay, inadequate reimbursements from insurance companies, and so much more. I will begin the dialogue now with our state leaders to ensure that we can continue to have responsive first call ambulance service in our city. During our discussions with the ambulance companies, one was looking for a subsidy by Middletown taxpayers, an on-call subsidy of nearly $1 million. That would be devastating for the city to have to start assuming that kind of cost in order to provide first call ambulance service. So we will look to possibly expand our fire department's role in EMS calls, something they've been very active with and do now. There will be discussion with the union about getting all paid personnel certified as EMTs, not for transportation, but just for life-saving first response calls, waiting for an ambulance. I think it's important that we prepare in advance. Now that we know the problem, it's imperative that we address it. I also agree with Chief Barber that city residents and property owners are fortunate to have a combination paid volunteer department that enables us to have a quick response for emergency calls and adequate volunteer response, more than adequate volunteer response, to provide protection we need. We do need more volunteers. So our recruitment efforts continue, including raising the length of service award program to $1,200 during 2022. I want to thank the residents of our city for approving the expanded benefit in this volunteer system. As I mentioned, if you compare what Newburgh, the city of Newburgh, a totally paid department, pays for their fire service, and what we pay for fire protection in the city of Middletown, you will see that it is several millions of dollars a year difference. And that would have a great impact on our ability to provide the service. So the more volunteer recruitment we do, the more encouragement we give to our volunteer service, the better off we are. We will also be renovating a series of garages for the relocation of our fire police. I will be asking the council to appropriate $200,000 of those federal monies for this project once we gain ownership of the property. I want to thank Chief Barber for his service this year, along with all your members and all the leaders of your department. You're doing an excellent job for all of us. The other side of emergency service is police work. In 2020, New York State enacted many criminal justice reforms. I believe that many in government, including police departments, acknowledged more accountability and transparency is necessary, especially in light of the many police-involved incidents throughout our nation. The department the leadership team under Chief Iwanchu is doing a fantastic job for our city. While statistics are important, looking at them in a moment may not tell you the whole story, as I previously said. It is a much better reflection of your community if you present to the public crime trends over a period of time. In regards to police reform, I said no from the outset of the proposal for defund police. I said it during our meetings, I said it publicly with our panel discussions, and I meant it. I said no to some of the bail reform proposals that jeopardize public safety, and I said no to parts of the most liberal marijuana reform laws in the country, and I'll tell you why in all three areas. In this case, in the case of defund police and that movement, Middletown has been way ahead of so many communities nationwide when it comes to the operational integrity of the police department. We welcome the community involvement, the scrutiny, and the opportunity to take an objective look at our operations with respected members of the community and public. This did result in some necessary changes, recommendations from that civilian panel. The first area was final say on disciplinary matters. In Middletown, we have had civilian control on hiring, discipline, the adoption of policies, along with the oversight of police operations since the 1940s. We did modify this oversight by now requiring all matters of discipline, not just some, but all matters of discipline, to be forwarded to the commission. With this civilian review board will now have the final say on all outcomes. Prior to this, smaller matters were handled internally. The most notable change and recommendation from the police panel was the recommendation to wear, for city police officers to wear body cameras. The city adopted and funded this recommendation immediately, which will cost $1.5 million over 10 years. Effective January 6, 2021, we outfitted all department personnel with body-worn cameras and implemented comprehensive police policies for their usage. In the area of bail reform, while their intentions of the legislature were admirable, and bail reform laws did need some reform, the reform had unintended consequences, and that were simply overlooked. All impacted parties must be at the table, including local government, local police, criminal justice advocates, law enforcement on all levels, and district attorneys, along with state legislators. I'm sure that we can all agree that minor, nonviolent offenders should not be sitting in jail for an extended time pre-trial. It does become an issue of equity. Who can afford the cash to get out of and who cannot? Is justice being served under that kind of system, where someone just being charged on a minor offense, and for the first time, say, sits in jail for weeks and sometimes months? I don't think it's equitable, and I don't think it's just. So it's probably not a just system. But one area where the reforms went wrong was not addressing those who are frequent repeat offenders. An analysis of our arrest records indicate that we have many cases where repeat offenders continue to engage in what law enforcement determines to be nuisance-type behaviors, or the law, not law enforcement, nuisance-type behaviors, such as petty larceny, narcotics possession, burglaries, and more. Yet all we can do, or all the police can do in that case with repeat offenders, is issue another appearance ticket. Once that starts happening, they are no longer a nuisance. They are now a danger. And we must have the flexibility to put that person and remove them from the streets. In addition, the legislature must correct removing the discretion of the judge when it comes to certain bail situations and allow them to make a determination, with oversight, of course, based upon the facts. This was a mistake, and hopefully the New York State Legislature will correct it. No one's been more vocal in this area than Mayor Adams in New York City. And I think he's on the right path to open a statewide dialogue on this topic. And he comes with credibility as a retired NYPD officer and also having served many years in public office in Albany before becoming mayor of New York City. The third area of concern for me was the marijuana law changes. As you know, in my urging, the Common Council voted to opt out of retail and on-site consumption of marijuana here in the city of Middletown. Understand that I in no way object to the use of medical marijuana, and the actions of the city in no way impede the purchase or the use of medical marijuana. In fact, a few years ago when this movement started, I sent a letter supporting medical marijuana to the state of New York to our legislators. In addition, I support the criminal justice reforms, that part of the law that deals with record expungement. This section is probably the most important part of what passed, considering the devastating impact that the old laws had on black and brown communities, with a prosecution rate 4 times higher than that of white people who are arrested for the same offense. For me, there are several concerns about this law in addition to the lack of operational rules from the Marijuana Control Board. The state has sold this as being a heavily regulated, like alcohol, type industry. However, unlike any other state, New York is allowing public consumption of marijuana, meaning you can smoke marijuana anywhere that cigarettes are allowed. This means in front of children, in front of my grandchild, your grandchild, at parks or near parks, playgrounds, and walking down Main Street, unless a community imposes other regulations to restrict that. You cannot drink a beer, though, walking down Main Street, and you should not be allowed to smoke pot walking down Main Street. That's one area that we cannot restrict. So it's wrong. If you're going to compare it to alcohol, then treat it like alcohol. I have requested that our representatives introduce legislation that at a minimum would give communities the choice to opt out of the public consumption provisions. I think it's a bad law. I think it's a bad provision of the law that will allow people to just walk down Main Street, walk in your neighborhood, stand in front of your home, and smoke marijuana. We have passed some local legislation, as I just referenced, that will allow us to enforce consumption within 100 feet of the above the parks and playgrounds, but it's not enough. We need to do more. I also have concerns about the process. I have concerns when you take a regulated substance, the government taxes it, they push it, they encourage it to be sold, and the government then becomes reliant on the revenues generated by it, then promise to use a portion of that tax revenue on drug treatment for the very people that you are marketing it to. In my eyes, that's wrong. What sense does it make to push that product, an addictive product, and then promise drug treatment, which usually fades away, as we can see now with the current drug crisis? The deadline set by the legislature, if you did not opt out, was December 31st, 2021. If you did not opt out, you were in forever. So we had to make a choice. The Marijuana Act required municipalities to make a decision before any rules were put in place by the regulatory body responsible for passing rules related to sales. We, along with hundreds, I think it's well over 600 communities in New York State, made the decision to not bind our residents, our city, into a decision that was final before we have a clear picture of the impacts and the rules. When the rules come out and they have adequate local control, I am willing to revisit my position on retail. Doesn't mean I will change my position, but I'm willing to revisit it. I am also firmly committed to opposing on-site consumption at any cost. At those meetings, the public hearings which we held, we had 16 people comment on the legislation. A few were involved in the industry and obviously motivated by their personal gain. Others had viewpoints, and we listened. Some came and just left. However, here in Middletown, I believe our residents understood where we're coming from. They listened to the testimony of our police chief. They listened to the comments of a common council, and they listened to the comments of the public, including one bank president who came and spoke against it. But of the 16 people who commented, 13 did not live here or had no business here. So I think it's important to put that in perspective. Also, the legislation allowed for an opportunity to put this issue on the ballot if the public disagreed with our decision at the time. Remember, 12/31/21 was the date that we had to opt out. We can always opt back in, but after 12/31, you cannot opt out. But after much bluster at the meetings from a very vocal minority and a lot of social media pushing, that vocal minority failed to submit one signature for ballot consideration, not one. That should tell us something. I believe our residents have confidence and understanding that our approach is the correct one. As we move to the next step, we'll get more public input. But at this point, before regulations come out, the city will not move forward on allowing for retail and on-site consumption within our corporate boundaries. The next slide is looking at this graph. Please note that in 2010, the city index crime total, that's the total of all crime, minor crime, from stealing a pack of cigarettes to violent crime, we had 1,321 incidents with a total of 150 violent incidents, Category 1 violent incidents. The numbers dropped dramatically over a period of 12 years, with our unofficial 2021 violent totals at 78. It's a pretty big drop, almost 50%. The decreases are substantial and contrary to what is happening in our nation and many communities throughout New York State. And you might ask why. Before I give you that answer, sadly, this past Sunday, we had a homicide on Maryland Avenue. What I can share with you is that it was not random. Two young men who knew each other well, really well, engaged in a fight. Despite efforts by police and EMS workers to save him, a 22-year-old died from a stab wound at the scene. We mourn the loss of that young man's life. Why it happened, I don't know. Police will do the investigation. I do know that two families are forever impacted in a negative way and that it was a senseless and tragic act. But the good news is the suspect is in custody and the court system will work it out. Chief Iwancho, your department has demonstrated a very high level of professionalism and commitment to our residents. You have led by example, and the results show that. The Middletown Police Department leadership team in 2021 was, along with the chief, was Lieutenant Jeff Tholen and Bureau Commander Frank Graziano. Together, they've utilized the experience and training and commitment of so many others within the department that I need to acknowledge a very unusual circumstance that this year, 160 years of police experience that assisted the department in that leadership role has retired. Along with Bureau Commander Graziano, we also had the following retirements. Lieutenant Mark Doty, Lieutenant Joseph Tobin, and Lieutenant Aaron Welch. Narcotics Unit Sergeant Ronald Magsamen, Patrol Sergeant Dave Frank, and Detective Paul Weisinger. I want to thank all of them for their many years of service to our city and hope they enjoy their retirement. But as one management team moves out, another one moves in. So we want to welcome on board our new Bureau Commander, Lieutenant Eric Hargett, who is here tonight, pictured here with Lieutenant Tholen. He understands that along with leadership comes training, policies, and priorities. And along with the chief, and as we analyze crime, as we analyze the trends, we determine how to allocate police resources over the years, that their input really matters. What I have known and what I've learned, I guess what I've learned before I knew it, is that policing is not just making arrests. It involves community, and the most important community asset is our children. When looked at individually, the interaction between the police and the community, one might say, well, that's not too much. They would look at it and naysayers say, when they see a program, so what? That's what they're supposed to do. The Too Good for Drugs program, for example. But that attitude changes when you add programs like Cookies and Cops, Cops and Barbecue, Parks programs, movie nights, Junior Police Academy, Trunk or Treat in the parks, Department Fireworks, the Run for Downtown race, summer concerts, delivering home COVID tests, delivering food and essentials to the elderly during the pandemic, and so much more. All intended to build trust and mutual respect. The end result is what we see in our statistics. The city of Middletown is now the host community to the police chiefs of Orange County Academy at our recreation campus. We see value in the presence and the interaction of the Police Chiefs Association with our youth. In fact, that's a condition of the lease, is that there is this interaction. We host those communities, different communities within our city, who choose to celebrate their history or have their religious procession go through our city because we celebrate our diversity and our differences. That type of diversity and differences makes people angry, or some angry. An example, this past Sunday, as part of our Black History Month virtual program, hosted by Because It Matters 24/7, someone hacked into the virtual town hall, making several racial comments and threats. This was unfortunate, but it really happened. I said to the organizers after the event that this person proved and demonstrated why the events themselves are necessary and that they must continue to provide these types of events, these types of outreach to all people in our community. Everyone on that call was taken back by their actions, and hopefully, moving forward, the police will be able to identify them. But I think the bigger example is that we know what needs to happen in this community. We need more action like 24/7 and less actions by people who call in anonymously and make threats. For that reason, we cooperate and we participate with organizations like 24/7. We are now managing three $25,000 grants from New York State through the police department. They're collaborating with Because It Matters 24/7, the YMCA, and also running their own program, the Youth Leadership Program, our Youth Leadership Academy. We have partnered with the Middletown School District on a My Brother's Keeper grant that will provide the opportunities for MBK scholars and their families to learn more about local government, increase participation, and possibly foster careers as police and firefighters. I want to welcome Anthony and Yaya Williams here tonight. I announced you at the beginning of the meeting, and thank you for all your efforts that you are making on behalf of our city with MBK and 24/7. We can see the results. We can see the results of all of these interactions between our police department and different groups and different organizations. And we also see the results when we lose focus and view the police department only as a responding agency. They're not. The neighborhood and community policing policies and programs, and that model created under Chief Ogden, was changed by his successor, who had a different vision. In 2005, this was the City of Middletown Police Department. They formed SWAT teams. By the way, I vetoed it, and my veto was overridden back in 2005. They reduced community policing and the patrols, and they had armored vehicles patrolling our streets. We put an end to that back in 2010. You will see that there is a direct correlation as to how we as a community, we as a city, invest our police resources in criminal activity based on this next graph. You will see during the Chief Ogden years of community policing that crime started to go down dramatically. You will see under Chief Burns' years of SWAT teams and military vehicles patrolling our streets that crime jumped up substantially, including violent crime. I believe one year we had 7 or 8 murders here in the city. Then when Chief Bethencourt came in, we saw a return to community policing, and the numbers started to go down again. And now, Chief, I want you going deeper into this concept of expanding community policing, initiating unprecedented outreach to our community, and raising the standards of accountability and transparency in police work. That's what needs to be done in a city police department, and they are doing it. Make no mistake about it, though. Our department is well-equipped and willing to handle emergencies. It's very clear, though, to me, that when militia-type police activity becomes the norm over community policing, the community suffers, the police department suffers, and our kids suffer. They learn the wrong thing. In the area of police resources, we continue to provide what is necessary for the chief and the department to function. We recently appropriated $220,000 of federal funds for the purchase of additional patrol vehicles, along with a new software program of $50,000 that will assist with the accreditation of this department, which is a New York State accredited department. For years, we have been doing what those on the national level call criminal justice reform, and we have been doing it well. But we also know that there's more for us to do. It is our goal and intention to maintain this relationship with the public. The chief and his management team are accessible, they are accountable, and they want to hear from you about your neighborhood concerns. And all you need to do is call. Moving on to what Jacob would consider to be our largest department and our most important department in city government is the Department of Public Works. Under the direction of Commissioner Tawil, the Commissioner of DPW, the mission of DPW is to upgrade and rebuild and build a more resilient infrastructure, including water, sanitary, and storm sewer systems. This includes, though, providing day-to-day services such as sanitation, snow plowing, and maintenance of city property and city roads. Other duties include code enforcement and building inspections. The department is in the last year of the measurement and verification energy performance contract that included the transfer of streetlights to LED and put them under city control. This one move alone saved us $300,000 per year in Orange and Rockland costs. And the environmental benefits of recognizing that climate change is real and that we had to be part of the solution. We also installed electric vehicle charging stations in spots throughout the city, and we will continue to do this and work with NYSERDA, a New York State agency who funds these operations. This spring, the city will undertake one of the largest infrastructure projects we have ever undertaken. We will be replacing almost every signalized traffic-controlled intersection in the city with ADA-compliant pedestrian crossings, new traffic signals, and new sidewalks and curbing, 250 feet in every direction from the intersection. Many sidewalks between intersections will also be replaced with other funding sources. This is a total of $26 million construction project. The contract was awarded to Boyce recently, who was a successful low bidder. You will see some traffic disruption in parts of the city over the next 24 to 30 months. This project is funded at a minimum of 80% with state funding and possibly up to 95%, along with some additional federal monies and downtown revitalization initiative funding from New York State. This project is in addition to new sidewalks along Dolson Avenue and a replacement of sidewalks in other high pedestrian walking areas where money is accessible. A few years ago, I promised a change in how we would pick up your household garbage. Approximately 50% of our workman's comp claims were coming from the sanitation department, and we couldn't blame the workers. Plastic bags were left curbside to be ripped open by animals. The morning after the pickup, the neighborhoods looked horrible, and our recycling numbers were very low. We made the capital investment of over $3 million at the time to purchase a new fleet of automated packers with a mechanical arm. We purchased and distributed special MSW and recycling carts and distributed them to each homeowner and implemented the new garbage collection system with great success. The program will pay for itself over time, not through laying off people, but through attrition of our workforce in the sanitation area. We have also seen an increase in recycling. The city has more than doubled our recycling program from the previous years. And we have seen cleaner streets and now a safer workforce. I need to give a special thank you to our former DPW Deputy Commissioner, Mark Pengel, former classmate at Middletown High School, class of '76, who spearheaded this change in sanitation. Mark is now retired after 40 years of service. He's well-deserved retirement, and he's enjoying life. Code enforcement, this part really hurts. I don't even want to say it, Jacob, do I? Is the key to quality of life in the city. And one may argue with this, but Alex Smith actually does a good job in litigating most of these matters. It's hard to get out, guys. The number of inspections that we are doing, almost 3,500 rental unit inspections annually, 2,500 quality of life inspections. Unfortunately, Alex did have to take 166 cases to city court, resulting in $19,000 in fines. Could probably do a little bit better there. These are for people who refuse to comply with our standards and codes. We have also had significant activity with our building department, Walter Welch. Walt's been doing a good job for us for many years. And in 2021, we generated over $450,000 in permits and fees. And normally you don't brag about charging, but people look at it as a tax. But it's important to note that we charge these specific permits because it places the responsibility for funding the agency, the user, on the user, and removes it from the residential taxpayer. If we didn't charge for these fees, we're obligated to have a building inspector and code departments. We would have to then levy our taxes, and that would cost other property owners who don't use those services would have to be paying for them. An area of concern that we have not made much progress in, and I brought it up last year, and we've discussed it in Common Council, and we're going to keep discussing it until we get it changed, is parking on lawns. And the council, I know, is considering legislation. I support legislation that will allow us to focus more on these violators. I understand that it has to be done over time because it's been ignored, and especially for those who have driveways. I think that's where we should begin. And for those who just park on their own lawns out of convenience rather than need. They've turned their lawns into parking lots, and it is at the expense of their neighbors. I understand that households have multiple cars. My household has 6. Our city founders did not have this in mind when laying out the city. However, I also understand that it takes away from property values of your neighbor, and it's aesthetically not pleasing. Moving on to the milling and paving program in 2020, we canceled it because of COVID. However, in 2021, we came out like gangbusters, and we expanded the program to more than, and made up for missed time. We quadrupled the commitment that we usually make. We usually spend about $600,000 to $700,000 a year in paving to $2.5 million for 2021. And we were able to pave 83 city streets. We had access to New York State CHIPS funding and a portion of the federal ARPA funds. And DPW did a tremendous job in that area. The men and women who work for DPW are very committed to providing the best of service to our residents, and they prove themselves on a daily basis. With Mark's retirement, Jacob now has a new management team, and you have met Brian Smith in the past, and the new person replacing Mark is Ross Mastria, who is in his first year. Along with those two, Alderman Jude Jean-Francois is the committee chairman of Public Works. We call him the chairman because Jude always finds time to go out in the field to do the necessary background work to move projects. I think the next slide will show you Jude out in the field. Did we put him out in the field there? I thought we had one there on the trail. But while we have made many operational changes and huge infrastructure investments over the years, we must recognize that we're still an old city with significant needs.
Mayor, you ready for a little break?
No, I'm good. Yeah, unless you need one. Hello, Commissioner, I'm going to be long-winded tonight, so if anybody needs a break, I can take a break.
They probably all would like.
Yeah, we'll go a little while longer. Through Commissioner Tawil, we have had great success with accessing grant money on the state and federal level, including watershed protection funds of over $6 million in grants, along with millions in water main funds and other infrastructure work. We will continue to concentrate in that area to address our current and future infrastructure needs. Jacob continues to focus on evaluating, improving, and streamlining and modernizing DPW operations. We need reliable infrastructure. It is the lifeblood of our city. Many of you don't think about it because it's not visible. We don't see the water and sewer lines, but without it, our community does not grow. Quality of life is impacted in a negative way, and it potentially affects our health, like you saw in Flint, Michigan, or even closer to home in Newburgh with the water issues. Generations ago, city leaders looked forward and created our reservoir system. That investment by the municipal leaders of that period, with the support of the taxpayers, was controversial at the time, but allowed the city to grow. We have benefited from their foresight, and it's important for us to display the same leadership. And that's where this opportunity comes in. We now see that federal help is on the way with the passing of President Biden's infrastructure bill. We must be ready to compete for these funds, and we are. Our shovel-ready infrastructure projects include the following, and you can see the list. Several millions of dollars from upgrading of dams to $16 million in raw water line replacement. That is reservoir-to-reservoir replacement lines. We also have a new city court that we're working on. So on a local level, this is how federal and state funding priorities affect our daily lives. It's important that we recognize that decisions made on the federal and state level impact us in our pocketbooks. President Biden and Governor Hochul's focus in this area is key. Our Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney and our Assemblywoman Eileen Gunther and their offices have been so supportive in regards to funding for some major waterline replacements, bridge work, culverts, and other major items. Assemblywoman Gunther has secured $6.1 million in state funding for the O&W restoration project alone in 2021, and has been so instrumental in cutting through the red tape of Albany. As of January 1st, 2023, we will have a new senator, James Skoufis, hopefully. Senator Skoufis is one of the most effective members of the New York State Senate. And hopefully Senator Skoufis will be representing Middletown, and that will strengthen our voice in Albany, being a majority member. After meeting with him last week to give him an update on city concerns, the stalled MPC transfer of property came up. He offered to intervene, and boy did he. Within 2 days, we met, I believe, on a Wednesday. By Friday, we received the draft contract of sale we have been waiting for over 4 years. This is big news for the MPC campus, for the 3rd Ward, and for our city. We will fine-tune our development plan now, which includes the expansion of Fayetane College on the site and taking control of the vacant, blighted buildings. This entire campus will now come alive. We will be acquiring 34 acres and approximately 13 buildings, including the fire police buildings. This growing school and medical facility join our long-standing education anchor, SUNY Orange, led by President Dr. Chris Young, who's here this evening, and Touro Medical College, recently granted university status by the New York State Board of Regents. All important players in our focus on arts and education in our city. The local team of Maloney, Skoufis, and Gunther, all majority members of their respective bodies, will make great things happen for our city and accessing all of these state and federal monies that are now available. Middletown's economy continues to rebound from the global financial crisis. We have moved aggressively to generate redevelopment and the tax-based growth by focusing not only on new construction in the area where we are limited, but on redevelopment of existing buildings. As you will see, many projects are underway or planned to continue revitalizing downtown, making the heart of the city stronger than ever. At the same time, we are paying special attention to the Dolson Avenue and Wickham Avenue corridors in all of our neighborhoods. One thing to be aware of is the Dolson shopping strip area off of Dolson Avenue, and to note how much more walkable it is with the additional improvements to come, But the town of Wayanda is now conducting an environmental assessment of Dolsontown Road, that corridor, that includes some large warehousing operations along with a solid waste transfer station. And we do have concerns, and we have many questions. In order to protect the interests of the residents and businesses on the southern end of the city and the city as a whole, we have retained CDM Engineering, an environmental firm with the expertise in this area. They will monitor the Wayanda Planning Board process with focus on traffic, especially the bridge over the Monhegan Brook, air pollution, the impact on the Heritage Trail, and any other potential adverse effects on our city by these proposed projects. Maria Bruni is the Director of Economic Development and Community Development. Her office deals in specific areas that include civic and cultural affairs, including the Paramount Theater, the IDA, the CDA, and working along with John Degnan as the Director of the Business Improvement District. This year, her budget for the community development part of her budget was $676,000. That money is used, federal money, to rehab homes for low and moderate income persons and to spur economic development. Loan and grant programs designed to assist homeowners, property owners, and business owners are in place. Many new businesses have opened despite COVID in downtown and throughout the city, many utilizing their funding and assistance through that office. COVID has been personally devastating to so many people and their families, and as a result of that, the city had to get into an area that is primarily a county responsibility, one we as a city are not familiar with, and that is housing the homeless. The Greater Middletown Interfaith Council manages the warming station that has been operating out of the basement of St. Paul's Church for many years, directly across from the police station. When COVID hit, we lost one of the community's greatest advocates for people in need, Dave Bechtel. There was also a realization at the time that this was not a safe environment for either the clients or the volunteers to be in a poorly ventilated basement and close quarters. Looking at options, and they needed immediate options, Temple Sinai stepped in to offer their facility. There was a lot of local opposition due to the new location being in a residential area. I agreed with the neighbors regarding their concerns, so we began to get public input. The city held public hearings on the issue, and the neighborhood was very vocal. There were also supporters of the warming station from the community also, who recognized that someone needed to step up out of concern for what may happen, and many were thankful that that someone was Temple Sinai and Rabbi Rubenstein, who is no longer here. What would happen if those less fortunate had to fend for themselves during a bitter winter night? So those were the questions that we were facing. Temple Sinai did open and basically operated this past winter, or the winter of 20 and 21, without incident, without any major incident. But we still had the neighborhood opposition, we had the neighborhood concerns. But it is a story with a successful conclusion. The city was able to relocate the tenant that was occupying the former Mulberry House Senior Center right behind St. Paul's Church. We then moved to secure funding for the necessary conversion of this facility into a warming station. Working with a receptive GMIC led by Pastor Rustico, the charge person for the warming station, Marilyn Pierce, Marilyn is here this evening, Maria Bruni, along with many others. We utilized Federal CARES Act CDBG funds, along with $50,000 in city funds committed by this Common Council, and $50,000 in local community development monies committed by this Common Council. Construction began in March of 2021 and was completed in November of 21, just in time for the winter season. The lease is $1 per year for 5 years, renewable at GMIC's option. Our community development program absorbs the utility costs. This project caught the eye of the Department of Housing and Urban Development Field Office in New York City. The project was nominated to take part in a CDBG CV Best Practices webinar series as one of 5 presented nationally. The presentation was modified by HUD in a report, and that report is now presented to Congress. It was nice work by all involved. Temple Sinai, GMIC, Alderman Green and Kleiner, advocates who had an understanding of concerns of both the people in need, and also the neighbors. Maria Bruni, project manager for the city, Mike Zahorchek, Jean Eufema, recently retired housing rehab specialist, Patty Racine, who took over for Jean, and I think I mentioned Mike Zahorchek, who managed the project, who took an $800,000 estimate down to about under $400,000 by managing the project. Our next area is the revitalization as our city continues, and no project has been more difficult than working on the former O&W station. This property has been vacant so many years and has become a symbol of urban decay, used by so many to undermine all the good happenings here in the city of Middletown. When people want to think negative and talk negative about Middletown on social media, you will usually see a picture of the O&W station with it. It's located in the First Ward, and we did receive much support from Alderman Massey and Burr to rehab this facility rather than demolish it. Alderman Witt has jumped right on board to join that parade. We will begin the restoration of this iconic building this year. We will have a project labor agreement with the building trades in place. And while it's true that we had a couple false starts, we never gave up on it. We recognize that this historic building, this city treasure, must be saved. It is so visible and so full of our history. We were fortunate to line up funding, and special thanks to Governor Hochul and Assemblywoman Gunther for lining up a large block of that funding. ABCD and their Head Start programs will occupy approximately half of the building. Alejandra is here this evening. They will occupy probably a little more than half. The upper floor will be 8 units of affordable housing as part of the rent-to-own program, where half the rent paid by tenants, potential tenants, at their choice, will go into a home buyer savings account to be used to purchase a home here in the city of Middletown. We will use the remaining parts of the building for community rooms, including possibly the home of the O&W Historical Society. At this point, the preliminary construction numbers come in just under $12 million. When you consider that the demolition of the building would be in the area of $1.5 million. The decision to rehab with funding sources makes even more sense. We are using the following funding sources: $3 million from the federal money, $2 million grant secured by Assemblywoman Gunther, $4.1 million in New York State CDBG money secured by Gunther and Governor Hochul, home funds secured in conjunction with County Executive Steve Newhouse of $800,000, and the City of Middletown has made a commitment of $1 million. Remember, it would cost us $1.5 million to demolish at the minimum, and our commitment to restore the facility is about $1 million. In 2021, Assistant Director of Economic Development, Caitlin McNamara, submitted the O&W project Pattern for Progress for their Community Rebuilders Program. It was extremely helpful with organizing and finding data sources, especially in the grant area. And the project is moving forward as we speak. We currently have many downtown and citywide initiatives underway. The downtown parking update includes new color-coded signage, overnight parking permits, reconstructed lots, along with mapping showing long-term, short-term, and overnight parking in those designated lots. Please understand that we are not going to allow short-term parking, long-term parking in short-term areas. The implementation of the new downtown parking garage regulations is in its early stages, including placement of additional dumpster locations to help keep and create a cleaner city. We pick up 7 days a week in downtown, and our goal is to remove as much as possible the placement of trash in front of buildings. If necessary to do so, they must place the containers similar to what homeowners use. To continue along the pathway of a cleaner city, the Business Improvement District has donated $25,000 towards the purchase of the all-terrain urban cleaning machine, as Jacob calls our vacuum cleaner. Our community and our kids in our community take pride. They worked with the Middletown Police Department for cleanup days. The Downtown Business District, led by the one and only John Degnan, continues to do outstanding work. If you do not know it, the downtown community imposes a special tax on themselves to assist the city with beautification, safety, and sanitation, and promotion. They coordinate the celebrations such as Juneteenth, Run for Downtown, the annual tree lighting, Hanukkah celebrations, summer concerts, farmer markets, and much more. Over his lifetime, John Degnan has given so much of his time, expertise, and energy to our city, especially downtown, as the director of the bid. This year, the city and the businesses downtown recognized John for his endless contributions, and we wanted to name his name to be forever associated with the rebirth of downtown. So we renamed, and this common council did it, renamed Festival Square to honor John, and it is now known as John F. Degnan Square. One of the most visible transformations is the work done under the facade program, where we invested well over $1 million in restoration grants and properties in our downtown area out of the $10 million state grant. We have addressed affordable housing in the city. Two main projects, Bella Vista and The Mill, we created 206 units that are now complete and occupied. We work with Cornerstone Family Health Care, a not-for-profit in providing health care and primary care for underserved populations. Their new location will be on Bennett Street, under construction. We also focused on market rate housing, Downtown Village on Montgomery Street, the former Class C Leather Building, approved for 54 units and 30,000 square feet of commercial space, going through the process now. 59 North Street, purchased, expanded, and occupied. We don't do this in a vacuum, and we work very closely with organizations like Pattern for Progress and their Urban Action Agenda. So we communicate with other communities in our weekly or monthly mayor's calls around the Hudson Valley. So we're all playing on each other. So our planning efforts also include working with Pattern to finally submit planning documents for the Fulton Street and Wickham Avenue corridors, and that's one of our next focus. The Paramount Theater had some downtime during COVID and during the COVID crisis, and we took advantage of this time to install a new sound system. We did significant work on the facade, with a large part of that funding coming through, guess who? Assemblywoman Raelyn Gunther. And The Paramount is one of the jewels in downtown, in our city, and it's a downtown acre. And I encourage you to check out our first show the next show that we will have in 2022, which is March 6th. But look at the schedule for 2022. We have several live shows plus movies. My office is staffed with my assistant, Mary Bierstow-Zahorchik. Yeah. Who has been with me since 2010 and is very responsive to the needs of the community. Not my needs, but the needs of the community. Along with our former intern and now part-time employee and senior at Middletown High School, Kayla Hunter. Kayla will be hopefully attending Howard University this coming year on a scholarship. Very proud of her. They are here to assist our residents on matters of concern to them. I really enjoy the opportunity to speak directly to our residents and business owners. I know I was a little long tonight, and I have a little bit more to go, so don't get up. So now more than ever, it's important to communicate our plans, our vision for rebounding from this pandemic that has seen nearly 1 million Americans die, our friends, our neighbors, and in some cases, family members. Some families are now divided over this issue. Friends became enemies. We're anxious, frustrated, angry, concerned about our children, our parents, our livelihoods, and our communities. COVID hit home for so many of us. Our former police chief here in the city of Middletown, Lou Ogden, Louis C., as we call them, raised in Otisville, adopted Middletown as his hometown, and lived here most of his adult life. Our friend, after many years in the police force, Lou became chief and was an iconic figure in the city and can be seen walking all over the city at all times. We lost Lou to COVID in 2021. It makes no sense to me. But we closed schools also. We closed businesses. The strain on our healthcare system was obvious, and we thank those like healthcare workers, our ambulance workers, our supermarket workers who demonstrated such bravery and continue to do so. Our city workers, police, fire, DPW, city hall workers, clerical workers, all worked through the pandemic. Our elected officials stepped up to the plate also. We had people, including former residents, donating money so the city could expand our food distribution program. We had some of our elected officials standing out there in bitter cold on a Saturday morning to offer COVID test kits, and we also offer rides for vaccinations. The long-term consequences are still unknown, so we follow the science. It is real, and while New York is doing much better, Middletown is doing much better, we must continue to encourage our families and friends to listen to the medical professionals, the science, and their doctors. We have maintained a mask mandate at all city buildings. That was lifted today with the exception of some youth programs. You know, we have a good team here at City Hall working for our residents. It's a team of both elected officials and employees throughout the city. The city is strong, and I have laid out tonight what we have accomplished and where we are going. The U.S. Census numbers recently released show the city of Middletown to be the 4th fastest growing city in New York State. That's 4 out of 62. This is a result of the good work we are doing, the good work of our school district is doing, and the many opportunities that are offered both in our community, recreational facilities, and through our district, our school district. And the opportunities for people and children and families are endless. And people do want to live here, and they want to do business here. We know there's a lot more to be done. I want to make sure every family and every neighborhood in the city of Middletown has the opportunity to be part of that success. We came together during a time of crisis. We are full of ideas, optimism, determination, and resolve to improve the quality of life for you, our residents. But we also recognize that you are full of those same things, so we want to hear from you. So as I close, I want to say thank you once again to all of our residents for the opportunity to serve another 4 years, to welcome Kevin Witt back, as I mentioned earlier, and to say thank you for coming tonight, thank you for listening, and with the crisis underway in Russia and the Ukraine, may God bless our troops. Thank you so much. Thank you.